your body suddenly contracts on its own. A sharp pull in your chest, then a strange involuntary hic as your throat snaps shut behind it. You didn't decide to do this, you can't stop it by trying, and within seconds, it happens again. You call this a hiccup. But the real answer is far stranger. That reflex doesn't look like anything else your body does, and there's a reason for that. It may be one of the oldest, strangest fossils still running inside your nervous system, left over from a time before your ancestors had lungs at all. A hiccup involves two separate systems firing in an unusual specific sequence. First, your diaphragm and the muscles between your ribs contract sharply, pulling air in suddenly. A tenth of a second later, a structure at the back of your throat called the glottis snaps shut, cutting that air off almost immediately. This combination, a sudden inward pull followed by an abrupt closure, is what produces both the physical jerk and the audible hic. A physician named Daniel Howes spent years puzzling over why this particular sequence exists at all, since it doesn't resemble normal breathing, coughing, or swallowing in any obvious way. Howes proposed something unexpected. He argued that hiccups may be a vestigial reflex, a leftover motor pattern inherited from an amphibian stage in our evolutionary history, before four-limbed vertebrates transitioned fully from breathing through gills to breathing through lungs. Tadpoles, Howes pointed out, use a very similar movement. They pull water across their gills for oxygen, while simultaneously closing off a valve that prevents that water from flowing backward into their developing lungs. A quick intake, paired with a rapid closure to protect the airway. It's nearly the same two-step motion your body performs every time you hiccup, just repurposed, and now largely useless, in a creature that breathes air through lungs alone. Under this model, a hiccup isn't a random glitch. It's an ancient, deeply wired motor program, one your nervous system apparently never fully deleted, even hundreds of millions of years after the transition it was originally built for. If this circuitry really is that ancient, you'd expect to see it show up early and unusually often before it settles into the rare nuisance most people experience as adults. This is exactly what researchers observed studying fetal breathing movements. A team led by Jean-Gerard De Vries used ultrasound to observe fetuses in the womb and found that hiccup-like contractions begin remarkably early in pregnancy and occur far more frequently before birth than they ever do afterward, sometimes accounting for a significant portion of a fetus's total observed movement in certain weeks. Nobody fully knows why hiccups appear so often before birth, but one reasonable explanation fits neatly with Howes' theory. If this reflex really is an old, deeply embedded motor circuit tied to airway protection, it makes sense that it would activate early and often, well before a fetus has any lungs full of air to protect, essentially running as leftover background code from a much earlier chapter of vertebrate history. This also helps explain something that's always been a little odd about adult hiccups: how completely disconnected they are from any obvious modern purpose. Eating too fast, carbonated drinks, sudden temperature changes, even excitement, can all trigger a bout of hiccups, none of which have anything to do with protecting a gill opening from water. The trigger has become almost arbitrary. What hasn't changed is the sequence itself. That same sudden pull followed by a rapid closure, running exactly the way it's always run, regardless of whether there's anything left to protect. So the next time your body seizes with an involuntary hiccup for no clear reason, this isn't a random malfunction with no explanation. It may be one of the oldest reflexes your nervous system still carries, a small functioning echo of gills, tadpoles, and a version of your ancestors that breathed water long before anything resembling you ever took its first breath of air. Your body suddenly contracts on its own, a sharp pull, then that strange involuntary hic. Somewhere underneath that reflex, older by far than your lungs, older than your species, a piece of amphibian wiring is still quietly running the same two-step motion it always has.